All right, let's get into it. We've all seen those gigantic, absolutely mind-blowing pop concerts. But have you ever stopped to think about what it actually takes to bring that whole spectacle to life? Well, we're about to pull back the curtain and show you how these epic shows get built, right from the ground up. It's so much more than just an artist and a microphone. It is a massive, massive operation. We're talking serious engineering, cutting-edge technology, and a huge team of people. It's almost like building a whole city from scratch, and then packing it all up into trucks to do it all over again in a new place a few days later. So here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll look at 5 key stages. First, we'll start with the blueprint, the initial idea. Then we'll see how the spectacle actually gets built. After that, it's all about the lights and sound. Then we'll meet the unseen army that makes it all happen. And finally, we'll see how they pack it all up and move on to the next city. Okay, so every giant show starts long before the first guitar string is plucked. And I mean months, sometimes even years of super detailed planning. This is where every single element gets mapped out. Just take a look at this checklist. This gives you a tiny glimpse into the giant puzzle they have to solve. It's not just booking a stage, right? It's finding a venue that can physically handle the weight of all the equipment, planning a tour schedule across the country that actually makes sense for dozens of trucks, and budgeting for everything, from security guards to the food backstage. It's this huge logistical web that has to be perfect before a single piece of gear is even touched. So once the plan is locked in, we move to the next phase. This is where those digital blueprints and 3D models start to become a physical reality. This is where it goes from a computer screen to a massive steel structure you can actually stand on. And check this out. These are not simple platforms. They're basically custom-built mini-cities made of steel and aluminum. They've got runways for the artist to walk on, hidden tunnels for quick costume changes, and all sorts of moving parts. And the craziest part? They're designed to be built and taken down super safely in just a matter of hours. It's a temporary marvel of engineering, really. So how in the world do they do it? Well, it all starts with a super detailed 3D model so the designers can see exactly what the show will look like from every single seat. Then, the crews work around the clock to assemble this heavy-duty steel and aluminum frame. After that, they install the cool stuff, like the runways that jut out into the crowd, and even hydraulic lifts that make artists seem to appear out of thin air. But the most important step is last. Nothing, and I mean nothing, happens until every single part has passed some really tough safety checks. All right, the stage is built. Now it's time to bring in the technology that creates that unforgettable feeling of a modern concert. This is really where art and science collide to create some magic. So probably the biggest challenge for the audio engineers is this. How do you make sure every single person in a massive stadium gets perfect, clear, powerful sound? Especially when you've got thousands of people screaming and cheering. How do they pull that off? Well, the answer is something called a line array. Instead of just one giant speaker, they hang these huge, curved clusters of speakers way up high. Each individual speaker in that cluster is aimed at a very specific section of the audience. This makes sure the sound gets distributed perfectly evenly. And that's exactly why the music sounds just as good in the last row as it does right up front. Pretty cool, right? Okay, once the audio is dialed in, the focus shifts to what you see. Because in today's concerts, the visuals are just as important as the sound, especially if you're a fan sitting way up in the nosebleed seats. The secret sauce behind those massive, crystal-clear video screens is a term called pixel pitch. All it means is the distance between each tiny LED light on the screen. The smaller that distance, the smaller the pitch, the sharper and clearer the image looks from far away. That's how they create a giant screen that looks just like a high-definition TV, even if you're in the very back of the arena. But modern concerts go way beyond just great sound and video. Like this quote says, to make a show something you never forget, you need that wow factor. And that is where the special effects come in. And that definitely includes pyrotechnics. Yeah, we're talking about fire. During the biggest moment of a song, licensed professionals can shoot flames 15 feet into the air. That, plus things like confetti cannons and smoke machines, creates those wow moments that just stick with you. It's all carefully controlled by computers, by the way, so it's perfectly timed and completely safe. So, we've talked about the stage and the tech. But who actually makes all of this happen every single night? Well, it takes a massive, unseen army of incredibly skilled people working behind the scenes. This slide really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? The audience, you and me, we might only see a handful of people up on stage. But backstage, oh, there are hundreds of people, engineers, technicians, security, you name it, all working together like a well-oiled machine to make sure the show goes off without a single problem. And let's talk for a second about the road crew, or roadies. These are the amazing technicians who travel with the entire tour, and their job is unbelievably demanding. We're talking 12 to 14-hour days, constantly lifting heavy gear, solving super complex technical problems with just minutes to spare, and often working at dizzying heights to hang all those lights and speakers. These folks are the absolute backbone of any tour. Okay, so the show ends, the crowd goes home, but for the crew, the night is far from over. In fact, their biggest job is just beginning. The end of one concert is the start of a frantic race against the clock to get everything to the next one. The entire show, the stage, the lights, the sound system, every single piece has to be packed up. A major tour can require a fleet of over 20 semi-trucks just to move its gear. Think about that, 20 trucks. It's just a massive logistical operation. And this loadout, as they call it, happens with incredible speed and precision. The second the show ends, the crew just swarms the stage. Within a few hours, everything is packed into these protective cases and loaded onto the trucks in a very specific order, kind of like a giant game of Tetris, to make sure it all fits and can be unloaded efficiently at the next stop. By sunrise, the arena is completely empty and the whole caravan is already on the highway. So in the end, a concert isn't just a performance. It's really a temporary masterpiece of engineering, technology, and pure human teamwork. The next time you're at a big show, look at the artist on stage, but also take a second to look at the lights, the sound, the screens, and think about the incredible, invisible machine that makes it all possible.